have this vivid memory of sitting in the bathtub one time and just crying.
I think I punched my dad once.
You're not in charge of me right now. Like, you just won't leave me alone.
I had an epidural in my back, so I couldn't move very well.
She just wanted me to keep pushing and keep going.
Everybody had one. Like, if you didn't have one, you were looked down upon.
This is a show where teenagers share their experiences growing up in today's world. I'm your host, Dr. RJ, and this is A Teen's Perspective. Hello, and welcome to A Teen's Perspective. I'm your host, Dr. RJ, and today we have a great guest for you. We have a 18-year-old, almost 19, college student. And before we introduce her, we need to come up with a name. So if you could choose any name, like a superhero's name, what name would you pick?
Well, I don't have a favorite superhero, but my favorite supervillain is Poison Ivy.
Okay, that works. So if you were a superhero called Poison Ivy, what would your superpower be?
That's an interesting question. I probably have to go with shape-shifting. I feel like that'd be cool to like just blend in or like be like a chameleon and like blend into your surroundings or be whatever you need to be.
That's cool. I like that one.
Yeah.
Well, let's welcome Poison Ivy to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So I always like to start off with your family environment because a lot of parents listen to this podcast and parents oftentimes are hard on themselves. They always think they made a mistake. So I want to kind of see where you started off and what do you remember about growing up in your household?
Like the main theme of my parents' parenting style, I guess you could say, is they were deep believers in 70s parenting, which means I did not have rules unless I gave them a reason to have rules.
Wow.
So that was really awesome growing up. I mean, it obviously had its drawbacks, and there were times where it's like when you have parents like that, like there are some times when you do have to be the parent for your parent, which is a little bit of a struggle.
Give me a scenario.
I mean, there was a couple times like in my past, like my parents were very independent. They didn't they were there for me. It wasn't always necessarily like on my time. And it's especially like towards like my mom. I have a lot of hard feelings towards her because of things that she did when I was a kid and when I was like a teenager. And I guess like one major thing is like my mom does not believe in doing things on anyone else's time except her time. And I remember I invited a whole bunch of friends to come with me to like the House of Torment. And my mom promised me that she would be home by 6 o'clock. And, 7:45 rolled around and I was getting kind of frustrated at that point, I guess you could say, considering we had reservations to go to the House of Torment and I had multiple friends there and they all relied on me for that ride. And like I had to sit there and call and like try to police my mom into getting her to come and pick my friends up. And then, of course, when she got there, she was not capable of driving all of us to go do that. So it's like I had to make like the adult decision to be like, okay, like we can't go this time or else we're going to have to find another ride. And I think we ended up Ubering there. And like I was a sophomore and I like paid for that myself. And it was stressful because it's not a fun decision to make and it's embarrassing as all get out, but it's just the decision you have to make for everyone's safety. And
yeah, thanks for sharing that. Now, you mentioned that you have some hard feelings towards her. What age did you feel like that started?
As far back as my memories go, especially when my sister was born. So that was 4 years old was when my sister was born. I'm sorry. Oh my God. It kind of felt like my mom just kind of no longer needed me because like my sister was like the main attention. And, my sister was like the prettier one and she was the skinnier one. And she was definitely a whole lot like my mom. And my mom no longer needed me because she had a mini me and, it was kind of sucky for me. And so I grew really, really attached to my dad during that time. And my mom and I's relationship has never recovered.
Wow. And you said like as early as 4.
Yeah.
And as a parent, parents are always kind of thinking they don't want to make a mistake. Like they don't want to feel like whatever they are doing is going to harm their child for like long term. I mean, but you remember as early as 4 years old.
Yeah. I have a very vivid memory of my early childhood. There was a period of time in my life that I don't have like any memories. And that was like my freshman to like sophomore year. And the memories that I do have are just like the really humiliating ones. So it's like I try to suppress those as much as I possibly can because it's not fun to remember. But
Yeah. Now you mentioned that you grew closer to your dad. Like, did you guys ever have conversations about your feelings towards your mom and how you felt like your sister was a favorite?
yeah, all the time because he was like my only outlet. And he would just constantly remind me that like she did love me and that he loved me. And like no matter what, he was always going to be there and that I could always come talk to him about everything. For a long time, he would always try to defend my mom. And then it kind of got to a point where he got sick of trying to defend her. And then it kind of got to a point when I was in high school to where he would come to vent to me about her behavior. And, you know, it's hard when your parents are both telling you how horrible each other are, but like, you know, that they love each other and that they would never like get a divorce or anything like that. But it's just like you feel the toxicity of your parents' relationship every day you wake up.
You mentioned that, you talked to your dad and he would defend your mom. Give us an example where it's pretty much blatant that your sister was a favorite.
My mom gave me literal body dysmorphia because she constantly reminded me that my little sister was always going to be the prettier one, who was always going to be skinnier. And it basically made me feel fat my whole life. And it's like now I'm in college. I weigh 114 pounds and, my little sister's bigger than I am and it's still not enough. We were at the pool like a couple of weeks ago and my sister and I were like standing side by side in our like bikinis and my mom just starts making comments about how she loves Holland's skin color and all sorts of stuff like that. And it's also really messed with my sister because that was the first time my mom in my life has ever said, "Oh my gosh, you're so skinny." And that's the first time I'd ever heard it. I'm 18 years old.
So you're saying that your mom literally told you you're fat?
On my 17th birthday, she actually asked me, because there was a period of time when I adjusted to Adderall when I was 16, that I got like down to 108 pounds and I was at 140 and I was just really unhealthy. And then I gained it all back super fast. And my mom literally asked me if I liked being skinnier or fatter better. And she was just like, "'Cause you're bigger now. And like, I want to know why you like went from being big to small and now you're big again." And like, that was horrible to hear on my birthday.
Yeah, I can imagine. If you could go back in time and there's one action that you could change from your mom, like what would that one action be?
I really wish my mom would just kind of give me like, the support, I guess like the verbal support she gave my sister, because I never got any verbal support for her. She never told me I was good or I was always just the nice kid. I was the easy kid. And that was all she ever said about me. She was just like, "Oh, you're an easy baby. And like, you're just nice." You hear that so many times and nice starts feeling like she's calling me a doormat because that's what life starts feeling like.
And your dad, did he give you those words of affirmation?
He did. I guess you could say my love language is like, I love when people spend time with me. And it's like my mom never even had the time of day to talk to me. And like my dad would have full on conversations with me and we would talk. He treated me like an adult from an early age, like talked to me like an adult and treated with me respect. And that was something that I didn't get from my mother.
So, your relationship with your mom, and obviously now you're older. Share with me the conversation when you literally like shared all of this with her.
I didn't actually share it with her by talking to her. In my college essay, whenever I had to write the essay to get into college, I basically just wrote down everything that I had against her and why I forgave her. And that was my college essay because it did make me the person I am today. And it's like I can talk to my mom about anything because I know that she's not going to judge me because she has no room to judge me. And so I guess that's comforting to know because I do feel like I can tell her anything and she can't tell me that I'm doing anything wrong because she just has no room to. So that feels nice, but I've never been able to fully have a sit down conversation with her and tell her all of the things that she's ever done to me. Because first of all, she'll deny it. And second of all, she's not going to see where she did anything wrong. So it's not going to help me. It'll actually just make things worse. So I wrote it down, I got all my feelings out, and I forgave her in my essay, and it got me into college. So that's where I like to leave it.
Yeah. Have your mom ever shared with you that she noticed that your relationship is not as strong as it could be?
Yeah, she constantly compared her and my sister's relationship to her and my relationship. She basically constantly compared the two relationships between her and my sister and me and her together, and would tell me how much she loved how my sister was so close and how much like her. And that was kind of weird. And she'd constantly be like, "You're just like your father." And I think she meant it as an insult, but in my mind, I was like, "Oh, that's the best thing you could have said to me. I love him, you know?" So it's a lot of that.
How did that impact your relationship with your sister?
We're not in a good place, actually, at all. I don't have a lot of respect for her. I think that she is completely wasting her life away and being stupid for attention. She is just doing outright dumb things for attention, and I'm not sure why.
Can you give us an example?
So my boyfriend, he came to visit with my best friend from college. His name is my boyfriend and him are also good friends. We're like the trio, you know? So they both came to my house to stay. And my boyfriend, he doesn't smoke weed or do any of that. And my sister, on the other hand, she'll do that. But the problem is that she thinks she can smoke in my house. That's not okay, ever. I don't know why she thinks she can get away with it if she does it in our house, because she's gotten caught twice now. And it's you have to question, why do you keep doing this when you keep getting caught? And my boyfriend had to convince her to not smoke a blunt in our house. And I just think that's crazy that in the middle of the night, instead of sleeping, he was having to talk down my sister from doing a dumb thing.
Oh, I see. Now, I'm curious. You're out of high school now. So why do you think smoking weed and vaping is so big in middle school and high school?
There's not a lot of things to do when you're in high school, especially when you don't have a license and stuff like that. And it's not hard to get access to those things. They're everywhere. It's just something to do. Or sometimes, there's other people that do it. I have friends who smoke weed because they can't sleep. I mean, me personally, I used to have anxiety attacks where I would have to go to the hospital and they'd pump a whole bunch of Valium into me until I stopped seizing, basically. I smoked and that completely takes away my anxiety attacks. Haven't been to the hospital since. So I think it's better than a lot of kids that do Xanax and stuff like that. But it's a very broad subject. It's I don't know how I feel about it, because I don't think that you should be doing it all the time in high school. That just is not right.
What is your mom has to say about the whole smoking weed?
Again, my mom kind of has the same views as me. She's seen a lot of bad stuff happen when people are drunk, but not a lot of bad things happen when people are high. My dad, on the other hand, is extremely opposed because it's illegal.
Got it.
And he's more he's just don't do illegal substances. He hasn't tried to take anything from. There's been no discipline when she gets caught.
So it sounds like your mom is, kind of easygoing. Like you mentioned, your parents are from the 70s. Dad is just hey, I don't have a problem with it, but it's illegal, so he can't do it.
He's never done it himself is the thing, because he grew up Church of Christ and everything's very strict. They don't even believe in dancing, which is just outright wrong, I think. They think it's too sexual to do. So, that's how he grew up. And I think my dad, considering how he grew up and how he is now, has grown a lot as a person and really broadened his views about society and how people are, because most of his friends are rock stars who are hard into cocaine in the 80s and stuff like that. And he's just very easygoing. He doesn't judge people for what they do, I guess, as long as you're a good person and you get your stuff done.
Does your dad dance now?
Yes, my dad is huge into music. He plays in a band. He actually is probably one of the most talented musicians I've ever seen with my own eyes. And I've met a lot of musicians and been to a lot of concerts.
Forgot about that. I went to one of his concerts. I do remember that.
He's a incredibly talented person. I've never met anyone with abilities like him. I mean, he can hear a song and play it back on most instruments. It took him one day to learn the piano. I mean, that's insane.
Wow. Yeah, it was fun. I remember that he invited us to go and he did a great job.
The punchline is my dad doesn't know how to read music at all. He can't read it, but he's so good at it.
So, are you a musician?
No, I'm just very critical about other musicians.
Yeah, so that's good. No, we all need critics. So, walk us through the hardest time that you've experienced. And for most kids, the hardest transition is middle school. But it sounds like yours may be like, I think you mentioned high school. So, share with us about the challenging times.
I had a friend who I had been friends with since, elementary school. And, he was always a bigger boy. And then he started losing weight in high school and he kind of got like attractive. And the thing was he was my best friend and I couldn't date him. And anyway, my freshman and sophomore year, we had a lot of fights. He would like do things like he would like text me because he knew I'd come. He would text me. He'd invite me to the park and I would walk to the park and then he would not show up. And then I would sit at the park and wait for him and he wouldn't show up. And the thing was, I was so like attached to him. He was my best friend and he was one of my only friends. He like alienated me from all of my other friends and like cut me off from a lot of people. And then our relationship kind of went from doing things like that. And then it got a little physical and I was just in a really bad place and I was really depressed and I felt like I had no friends. And that lasted 2 years. And I basically didn't leave my house like all of my sophomore year. And also like that was a bad time for my family financially. Was like 8th grade freshman year. I was like having trouble in school and I just basically didn't want to be here anymore. I was over it. I was completely done. I was sick of going home and being treated like I was sick of going to school and being treated like I was just sick of it. So sorry for cursing, but I was done. I was really, really done. And I made some decisions and then I, reversed that decision, which sucked. And I wish I didn't put myself in that position, but I was good and I was okay. And I finally decided to tell my parents that I had been depressed for 2 years. And so after we had that conversation, they finally were like, okay, we'll take you to a doctor and get you help and good counseling. Because I was basically over feeling so horrible. I didn't want to feel like this anymore, but I didn't want to die. That was the critical decision for me. Was I knew that I couldn't die, actually. It was like I wanted to, but I wouldn't let myself because people still needed me. And I knew that people still needed me. And so that was the determining factor and why I'm still here right now.
Thanks for sharing that. Can you give us some insight into where it gets to the point where a teenager wants to commit suicide? With the COVID-19, there's been a number of suicides by teenagers during this time. So can you give the audience some insight into the mindset when you're in that space?
You feel completely isolated. Like nobody wants to hear about what's going on in your life. Sometimes it just gets to a point when enough people tell you that they don't care about what you're feeling, that you just kind of shut down. I was completely desensitized. Nothing made me cry. Nothing made me happy. Nothing made me mad. I was just completely living out of my body. I felt like I was on autopilot every day. I'd get up and go through the same exact routine and I would have no emotions while doing everything. That's how I lived every day for 2 years. It sucks because you push a lot of people away because you don't want to let anyone into your life. And then the people who are in your life, especially in my case, were purposefully trying to make your life even more hellish than you were making it for yourself, So it was you felt completely trapped and there was no way out.
What about your friends? Because it seemed the peers is everything to teenagers, their whole world. So where were your friends during that time?
They made a group chat and put me in it. And then they told me that they didn't want to be friends with me anymore. And then they all blocked me. Ironically, I went to a party with a girl who was in that friend group and it was her birthday. And it was actually at another mutual friend of ours' birthday party. And, I had a little bit to drink that night and I was going to the bathroom and she followed me into the bathroom and she just apologized for everything she put me through, which made me feel a lot better because at that point I was happier and I kind of accepted that what happened was not necessarily all my fault. And that kind of made me feel a little bit more at ease.
So it sounds like your relationship with your mom at home was not going well. Your really close friend, you mentioned that, he started to be a little physical, and your friends like dropped you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this one friend is the only one that kind of kept you with some happiness?
It was basically like she just felt bad that she let him do that because he orchestrated it behind my back. Like apparently he had put them all in a group chat, told them what they all needed to say, and he made the whole thing happen. And she said that she was sorry for following what he wanted to happen and that she missed me as a friend and that she knows that things were never going to be the same, but she wanted me to know that she was sorry.
So talk to us about how it is that you guys were like really close and friends, and then it turned to where it was pretty physical.
It was kind of like when he got like skinnier, like he would like do things like he would come up and like grab my ass and like slap me and like just things like anything that like slightly ticked him off. He would hit me in the shoulder super hard if I like couldn't make a decision. Like when I needed to make a decision, he'd be like, "Where do you want to eat?" And I'd be like, "I don't know." And I'd get like basically like side punched. And I'm like, why? Why was that necessary? And so that's some kind of things we're getting. I think he was kind of like making it look playful, but it didn't feel playful and it didn't look playful like the day after. So that was kind of things. And I hid that from a lot of people for a very, very long time.
How is it that your parents for 2 years, they didn't know you were depressed at all? Like, how do you hide it?
See, like I told you, my parents left me alone as long as I did everything I needed to do. So I was doing everything I needed to do. It wasn't doing it at like a high performance, but like I was passing my classes just barely. And I was doing my chores and, I wasn't causing them any problems. So they didn't see it as a problem.
Oh, I see. Because they just were not really that in tune to what was going on. So you didn't really have to hide it that much. You just had to just pretty much.
Oh, I just had to live and they were not going to bother me or ask questions.
Yeah. So what was the tipping point? Like, why did you finally go and tell your parents about this?
It was because I took some pills and heard my dad come home and then I made myself throw up a lot and didn't go to bed. So that was that. I heard him come home in the middle of that and, I knew that someone was going to be there for me. I didn't tell him that happened because I was like ashamed of it. And I'm still never going to tell him about it. But yeah, he was the reason I'm still here.
Wow. Why do you want to tell him?
Because I'm a very independent person and I've done so well with so little. And I don't want anything to change with how I am right now. Like I love who I am right now and I love what I've become. And like telling him isn't going to make anything better for me. It just kind of like reminds me of it. And I don't want him to like think that happened like while he was home or anything like that. Cause like my parents trust me a lot. So sorry.
No, that makes sense. Now you made the comment that you like who you become. So my question is, how does someone go through all that you went through, growing up since 4, not feeling like you were accepted or you were loved from your mom and went through this terrible experience in high school? How did you make it through all this and be the person you are today?
You just got to understand that there's not necessarily bigger things in your life to live for, but maybe other people need you in their life. And that's kind of how I weighed it. And, as I've gotten to college, I've met so many people that have impacted my life so much. And I've made so many great friends. And I know that none of that would have happened if I wasn't here. So it's just like you have to basically change your mindset and think about like every day is something that you could do something different to, make your life better. I stopped trying to just go through life emotionless. I basically decided to enjoy life for what it was. And sometimes life is and that's that. I mean, I had a couple semesters ago. Yeah, my first semester at college, I left home, hit the fan with my family. Again, sorry for cussing. My sister ended up getting admitted into a mental facility. It was actually finals week, and I got a call from her in a mental facility. And I was like, this is the last thing I needed on my plate right now. And, that was hard. There was a lot of really hard things that happened. And it's more like just separating yourself from like there is you. Long story short, you have to be happy with yourself first and understand that you're not going to be able to make everyone happy in your life. And you also can't live your life as someone else's doormat. And just being independent and making my own decisions and having control over my own life and waking up every day and choosing to live my life the way that I want to live it has been how I've grown out of that, because it's nice to wake up sometimes, for yourself and not just other people. But coming out of depression, I definitely woke up every day being I have to wake up because this is what my dad would want, or this is what my grandma would want, or my dogs are here in the morning and my dog brings me socks every morning, and who's going to put on the socks that she brings me in the morning if I don't wake up, So that's kind of things I used to wake up for. And now every day I wake up because I want to wake up and I want to go out and I want to have fun with my life and I want to hang out with friends and I want to get good grades and go to college and move on.
So yeah, it's awesome. And, you're in college now. So tell us, your future, what do you hope to do?
I hope to go into relationship counseling.
Awesome.
Because that's what helped me. It made me figure out how to let go of a lot of things and not hold grudges and be a lot happier with other people so that I could be happier with myself.
Wow. That is an amazing profession. That is so cool. So you're a sophomore now in college?
Yeah, I'm taking summer classes right now. I'm not quite a sophomore yet because I went in with no hours.
Okay. So you're still considered a freshman, but once you graduate, are you going to start working as a relationship counselor, or do you need to do more school? How does that work?
So I need to get a master's degree at least. So I hate school, so this is going to be fun, but this is what this is what I think I need to do with my life. I know I'd be good at it. I've always been a pretty logical thinker and I don't really think too emotionally. And that's kind of a huge part of the job. And I definitely understand human behavior pretty well. It's how I live with two bipolar people every day.
That's awesome. Well, I know without a doubt you're going to be great. And speaking from a person who's went to school 11 years, it'll go by fast.
Yeah, I hope so.
So before we end the show here, go ahead and share with parents who are listening. What is it something that they can do to avoid what happened to you, with their child? What can a parent do so that their child can avoid this?
I personally believe in 70s parenting. It definitely worked for me for the majority, but just make sure you talk to your kids, ask them about their day. You don't have to pry and be a helicopter parent and see what they're doing 24/7, but ask them how their day is going and what their friends are doing and have interests in the things they have interest in. Cause my parents never used to ask me oh, how's your friend, or how are you doing? Or, how was your day? And that was one thing that I really wish did happen in my childhood. But other than that, I tell my parents even in college, I'm hey, I'm going out to the bar tonight. Here's when I think I'll be home. So if I don't text y'all tonight, call me so you can make sure I'm safe. That's the type of kid that I grew up to be without my parents monitoring me everywhere I go and everything I do and who I'm with. So my sister, on the other hand, didn't quite do it as much, but that's also because my mom was kind of helicopter parentish over her because that was her baby. So she kind of made a little monster, but
When it comes to teenagers, coaching is so effective because we use proven techniques that help teens identify goals and develop actionable plans to achieve them. If you're a parent and you want to learn how to use these coaching techniques to coach your own teen, visit us at coachyourteen.com. All right, welcome back. So we still have Poison Ivy with us, and we're going to do something special for this episode. We're going to do a live coaching session. So Poison Ivy shared there's something she's trying to figure out, and I'm going to help her figure it out. All right, so Poison Ivy, go ahead and tell us, what is the dilemma?
So I have a boyfriend. We've been dating for almost 10 months now. And he has some self-esteem issues, but that causes him to not trust me at all. And like he like has accused me of cheating before, and I've never been like unfaithful. I do have a lot of like guy friends, and I know that's alarming to him. I want him to trust me, and he tries, and like he started going to therapy and stuff because he knows that it's been getting bad, and I want to know what I'm doing wrong or how I'm supposed to help him get over that.
So it sounds like the biggest issue that you've identified is trust.
Yes.
And when he doesn't trust you, what actions that you notice that really hurts the relationship?
There was one specific fight that we had that I got so mad that I left our dorm hall completely and like drove across town to go stay with my friend because I just didn't even want to be in the same like mile zone as him. And he basically texted one of our good friends at the time, and he was like, definitely cheating on me. Like, I have proof. And I was like, no, you don't. And you just lied to one of our like good friends. So he's going to think that I'm a cheater now when I haven't done anything wrong. Like, I wasn't sure why he'd lie about it because it was a complete lie. And it just made me so angry because it made me feel guilt that I didn't feel like I needed to feel.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, that if you have not cheated at all, that someone would accuse you of that. So what do you think is going to happen if this continues?
The relationship is not going to work out because obviously I can't live my life with a boyfriend who thinks I'm cheating on him, and can't marry that.
Yeah. So, you know, you mentioned that he's in therapy, right? So you see that he's making an attempt to change some things. And the fact that you brought it to me in our interview, it seemed like you want to make some changes too.
Well, yeah, because his therapist apparently told him that our relationship is doomed. That's what he told me after his first therapy session with her.
And how did that make you feel when you heard that?
I was driving home from Dallas and I had to pull over my car so I could cry on the highway.
So it sounds like you really care about this relationship.
Yes.
So whenever you look at, you know, this whole idea of the cheating, right? What do you think on your end played a role into him feeling that way?
I had a really good friend that I went to college with that, I mean, I think we were interested in each other for a week. And I didn't tell him because I was scared to tell him because like I had also had like an experience with this guy, and like I didn't want to tell my boyfriend because he was still a really good friend of mine. And I had talked to this boy, the friend of mine, and I made it very clear that I no longer saw him in that way and that I only saw him as a friend. And like, I also kind of like tested the water because I wasn't sure if I was attracted to him. And I figured out I was not attracted to him very quickly. So there was no physical attraction at all. So you'd think that my boyfriend wouldn't have anything to worry about, but he was like furious with me that I didn't tell him right off the bat. And ever since then, he constantly is like, you're hiding stuff from me. And I was like, I didn't hide that from you per se. I just didn't want you to think of him differently because he's just a friend. Like, that's all he's ever going to be.
So it sounds like it all started from that one incident.
Yes.
So before that incident, he was trusting and everything was good.
No. He came into the relationship with issues, which was kind of ironic because while he was at college, he really enjoyed his first like month and a half of college without a girlfriend. He added a lot of bodies, I guess you could say. And I was being very celibate. So I wasn't doing anything, I guess you could call like hoish per se. And it was like, I felt like I was being treated like a from my boyfriend because of this one incident that happened like a year and a half ago.
So you mentioned you care so much about the relationship. So what about the relationship that really makes you feel fulfilled?
He's really funny. And I feel like the conversations we have are like, we always have fun when we talk. Like, we're very good at hanging out. We have the same interests. We like to do a lot of the same things. We have a lot of the same friends. And everything just feels very good when we're together. Being long distance in a relationship has definitely changed my perspective of our relationship. I don't think that it's as strong as I hoped it would be whenever we went to long distance. But, you know, we're trying and we've been working through things. And it's like every time I bring up a problem to him is he tries to fix it. And that's what I like because he just puts so much effort into our relationship.
Yeah. So it sounds like, you are sharing with him things that he can change to make the relationship work. So what are some of the things he's shared with you?
He wants me to be more like communicative and like basically he wants me to tell him like where I am, who I'm with, what I'm doing, when I'll be home. And I've never had to do that before because like I said earlier, my parents have never asked that of me. So it's definitely a huge change in my life having to tell someone like where I am, who I'm with, what I'm doing, and all of that. I'm not used to it. And so there's an adjustment happening for me too. But I also don't know if that's normal because this is like my first real boyfriend.
How did it make you feel? Like when he brought that up, because you already mentioned that you didn't grow up that way. So how did it make you feel whenever he said this is what he wants?
Like he didn't trust me because that's what I feel like you do to a child who has behavior issues. A kid who like lies about where they're going and has like is doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing. Like that's the type of person that you ask those questions to. Like, I don't feel like you should be asking that to someone who's like your equal.
So when you shared that with him, what was his response?
Well, he brought up how that was how he grew up and his parents asked that of him. And I told him that one time my mom went to Japan and didn't tell me for a couple days. So that's how I'm used to living. And it's a huge adjustment and I'm trying, but he thinks it's a very easy thing to adjust to, but it's really not when your entire life you haven't had to report to anybody and you've just been your independent self. So that's why I'm also like not sure if I'm supposed to be doing that. Like the only time I've ever heard of that happening is in like a parent to child relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to your values. I don't necessarily think there's any wrong or right answer when it comes to how two people want to be in a relationship with each other. Some people may think that's fine. Some people may not think that's fine, right? I mean, it's clear that both of you guys were raised differently. So it makes sense that there would be this tension when it comes to expectations. What was important, though, is your values around it. Because if you just follow along, but deep down, you just feel like this is so wrong, then it's going to be very difficult for the relationship to grow. But if you're of the mindset, like, you know what, I care about the relationship, it's annoying, but I don't really, it doesn't really bother me. I don't feel any kind of way about it, but it's just kind of annoying. Then you may want to kind of pursue it. So really the question comes down is, how do you ultimately feel about it? Is no one else can tell you if it's right or wrong, but how do you feel about it?
At first, it was a huge adjustment. I felt very annoyed that I had to do it because I felt like it was a chore. Like I felt like I was having to I felt like I was in the army. Like I was having to report to someone constantly. And like, it was just odd because that's weird to me. And it's still weird to me, but I'm trying because it's like I'm so invested in the relationship and I'm trying to see his way. But I'm also thinking like, I'm not going to raise my kids like this. So I'm not sure.
The reason why it's important about how you feel, because I'm going to use two extreme examples, right? So one view could be, this is a very extreme, is that it's a woman's right person. And they look at it and say, you know what, that is not the way it should be. A woman should not have to tell, a man all this, whatever, right? Like that's an extreme view on one side, is to be like, you should not have to do that. How dare you? In fact, it's demeaning, it's almost abuse in some eyes, right? Like that's extreme. But if you go on the other side of the extreme, it could be like, maybe, this is the universe or God or who you believe in trying to develop you. Life is about balance. You've experienced this idea of just complete freedom. And then now this is some order in your life. It can be balanced. So my point of saying that is there's literally no wrong answer here at all. You can find people to agree with you, to say like, yeah, you shouldn't do that. And you can find other people to be like, listen, if you're happy and you love this guy, this is a personal development practice for you right now. So when you think of the two extremes, which one resonates more with you?
Well, it's kind of hard because it's like, I want to be more on the feminist kind of side of this. But it's also like, I'm also that person that's like, I'm so in love with my boyfriend that I don't want to break up with him. So it's like, this is like, I'm okay with doing it because I love him. And like my boyfriend's a very conservative guy, and I've always been like pretty straight down the middle. And I think that's also because like my mom was always more liberal, my dad was always more conservative, and that's just how my views developed. But I'm having a hard time trying to let go of my like I want complete freedom and no man to report to, because I know that the reason that I think that way is because like my mom is like men should bow down to women at all times. And I know that that's caused a lot of marital problems for her and every other woman on that side of the family, except for one. But she also was more of the compromise kind of type, and she's in a happy relationship. So I'm trying to go after what she's thinking. So that's why I'm thinking that maybe if I just bend my very stubborn views just a little bit and make this exception for him, that I'm going to be okay.
I like it. You see how you just worked that out in your mind? You know, you started to think, you know, those extreme views. You say, okay, which one do I resonate more with? And then it starts to remind you like, wait a minute, my mom, that was problems, you know, so my other family members, problems. And the one person who compromised is a great relationship. So now it sounds like you feel more confident on working this out.
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, I've had plenty of guys that I've like dated, but this has been the only guy that I've actually genuinely liked. And like, I'm at the point, like, I really do love him now. Like, it's hard to imagine my life like without him. And so that's like, I feel very invested because there's just so many good things that I do believe outweigh the bad.
Yeah. And, you know, as a coach, I'm completely objective. I want you to be happy. So since you have made the decision that you want to try to make this work, let me kind of help you on making this a little easier for yourself.
All right.
All right. So whenever your boyfriend asks you to do all these things, you know, call, check in with me, immediately you're thinking to yourself, what?
It's kind of like, oh, here we go again. It's that every time, but it's like, it kind of gets to a point where it's a joke. But last night he really pissed me off because basically was asking a ton of questions and like annoying the crap out of me because he was asking me, am I okay? Like repeatedly. Because I went over to a friend's house for a party, but her brother is home and he invited a special friend over and asked us all to leave the house. So we did, and we went on a drive. I sat in the back and I got really car sick. So I came home and I fell asleep about 11 because I thought I was going to throw up. And I woke up at 2 a.m. and my boyfriend had like called me multiple times and was like, what's going on? Like, where are you? Even though I had like briefed him on who was there earlier that night, it was just that I didn't like check in with him. And I'd also told him that I was going to bed to take a nap like before I fell asleep that night. So it was like, it bothered me that even after I explained everything, like it wasn't good enough.
Yeah. So that makes sense. So you started this conversation off asking, what are some things that you can do to kind of help the relationship? And it seems like one of the bigger issues for you is this idea of feeling like he's not trusting you. So he mentioned to you that, or at least it came up in the conversation, is that he grew up a different way than you. So he grew up where this is pretty normal. So my question to you is, which thought and belief would produce the best action for the relationship? Either every time he calls me or every time he gets mad that I don't check in, he doesn't trust me, or he's mad when I don't check in because that is normal to him.
Yeah, I just like, I see it as like the reason his parents did that was because they didn't trust him. Because my boyfriend was a little bit, I guess you could say he was a delinquent for a little bit. Now he's on the dean's list.
So what's another interpretation? What's a completely different interpretation of why his parents treated him that way?
Because they weren't home because didn't have any other contact with him. Like my boyfriend didn't live with his parents in high school. And the only times they really came back were to watch him play football. So maybe it was just their way of seeing what he was doing.
Yeah. So, you know, is it possible that it has something to do with trust as if he's doing something wrong, but maybe just they want to know what their child is doing?
Unfortunately, I don't think that, because I like talked to his mom and like that was like what the story was. It's like the reason like he had Life 360, and that was just because his parents didn't trust him at all. because he was doing stupid things in high school, and he basically asked for all of that onto himself. But now he's like used to it because he's been doing it for so long. And I just don't think that it's normal still, but I'm trying to see it in a different way, because I know that's just like, maybe he didn't see it as his parents didn't trust him, but his mom did mention that it was because of some trust issues that she had with him.
Right. So you just discovered the other interpretation. You just said maybe he didn't know that they treated him that way because of trust issues.
Yeah. It's just hard because it's like, I also don't want to be like, your mom told me, but
Yeah. And this is all for you. Remember that. So in other words, whenever his actions of asking you to check in, immediately in your mind, you go to trust, right? You're like, oh, he doesn't trust me. And of course, if someone doesn't trust you, you're going to be upset. And if you are upset about something, then it's going to be hard to kind of get in line. But if every time he checked in, he asked you to check in, your mind went to, oh, this is what his understanding of a relationship is all about, because that's how he grew up. Then your emotions wouldn't take it so personally, be so upset, because it has nothing to do with trust. It has to do with what is his norm. And then your action change as well.
yeah. It's just like, I do see myself marrying him, but right now I don't know how I see myself having kids with him, because since his parents had very different parenting styles than mine did, like I think my parents did a pretty good job raising me and my sister. I mean, my sister has some mental health issues, but I mean, my parents did pretty good considering they had 2 kids with extreme mental health issues, but I like most of what they did when they were parenting. It's just, I want to like alter those few things. And he doesn't want to raise kids like that because he thinks it's weird.
It's like you mentioned, still early. Things change. He's going through therapy. You're trying this new lifestyle out where you're kind of checking in. So, you don't know where you guys are going to end up after this. But, I will say that you care about the relationship. I think just changing the way you interpret his actions will definitely help you to be much happier whenever he has those requests.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Perfect. So it sounds like that is your homework to practice whenever he says, hey, when you leave, call me. Immediately just tell yourself, oh, this is his norm. Has nothing to do with trust. He trusts me. It's just his norm. That's okay. It's just normal for him. Well, I hope this interview will help in some way with the relationship between you and your teen. Thank you for listening, and thank you so much for all of your support. Please review, rate, and subscribe, and share with a friend. Once again, I'm your host, Dr. RJ, and this is A Teen's Perspective.